Good evening, and welcome to a broadcast unlike any other. Tonight, we stand at the threshold of a pivotal moment in American history, one that will echo for years to come. Tonight we witness a historic shift in American life, as a single Supreme Court decision redraws the lines of a generations-old debate. The nation holds its breath as the highest court in the land delivers a verdict that will shape the future of our laws, our communities, and our very sense of security. This morning, under a cold January sky, the Supreme Court delivered a ruling in United States versus Donovan, transforming our nation's gun laws overnight. The courthouse, shrouded in winter's chill, became the stage for a decision that will ripple through every corner of the country. The 6-3 decision has invalidated or forced the revision of 10 key gun regulations, creating a new and uncertain legal landscape. The justices' opinions, both majority and dissenting, reflect deep divisions not only within the court, but across the nation itself. We'll break down what the court decided, which laws have changed, and what it means for you. From background checks to concealed carry permits, the legal framework Americans have known for decades has been upended, leaving lawmakers and citizens alike searching for answers. We'll hear from leaders in Washington, legal experts, and everyday Americans whose lives are directly affected. Their voices, filled with hope, concern, and uncertainty, paint a vivid picture of a nation in transition. The implications are vast, touching everything from local policing to the national economy and the upcoming elections. Police departments are reassessing their strategies, businesses are bracing for change, and political campaigns are recalibrating their messages in real time. Our correspondents are across the country to bring you the latest developments. From bustling city centers to quiet rural towns, we're gathering stories and reactions that reveal the true impact of this landmark decision. How will states respond? What does this mean for public safety? The answers are just beginning to emerge, as governors and local officials scramble to interpret the ruling and chart a path forward for their communities. This is a moment that will be written about in history books, and tonight, we are living through its first chapter. The decisions made in the coming days and weeks will shape the legacy of this era for generations. Stay with us as we unpack a day that has changed America. Our team is committed to bringing you clear, comprehensive coverage as this new era unfolds before our eyes. To truly grasp the significance of today's Supreme Court ruling, we need to journey back through the complex and often contentious legal battles that paved the way to this moment. The path to this decision is a tapestry woven from decades of legal arguments, shifting public opinion, and relentless advocacy. Each case, each challenge, has built upon the last, shaping the legal landscape we see today. United States versus Donovan is not an isolated event, but rather the culmination of years of legal challenges and a carefully orchestrated campaign by Second Amendment supporters determined to expand gun rights. The story's roots stretch back to 1939, with United States versus Miller. In that landmark case, the Supreme Court interpreted the Second Amendment as being closely tied to militia service, setting a precedent that would influence gun law for generations. But the legal landscape shifted dramatically in 2008 with District of Columbia versus Heller. For the first time, the court recognized an individual's right to possess firearms for traditionally lawful purposes, such as self-defense within the home, fundamentally altering the debate. Just 2 years later, McDonald v. City of Chicago extended this newly affirmed right, making it clear that state and local governments were also bound by the Second Amendment's protections. In 2022, the court's decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin set a new standard, requiring that any gun regulation must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. This history and tradition test would become a powerful tool for challenging modern gun laws. Suddenly, a wide array of contemporary gun control measures, from waiting periods to magazine limits, were called into question, their constitutionality now uncertain under this new framework. It was in this shifting legal environment that Sarah Donovan, a software developer from Colorado, stepped forward. Motivated by her own experiences and a belief in individual rights, she challenged both federal and state gun laws, arguing they failed the new historical test. Donovan's case quickly grew in scope, consolidating multiple challenges to waiting periods, bans on certain firearms, and restrictions on magazine capacity. Her legal team argued that these laws had no historical precedent and were therefore unconstitutional. legal scholars and commentators across the country recognize Donovan as the most significant Second Amendment case since Heller, with the potential to reshape gun laws nationwide. Today, the Supreme Court used Donovan as the vehicle to deliver a sweeping and definitive judgment on the constitutionality of modern gun control measures, sending shockwaves through the legal and political landscape. With this decision, the legal landscape has shifted once again, leaving lawmakers, advocates, and citizens alike to grapple with a new reality. The stage is now set for a new era in American gun law, one that will be defined by the far-reaching consequences of today's historic ruling. The 150-page opinion in United States v. Donovan is dense, but its core message is clear. The majority, led by Justice Evans, argued that many modern gun laws lack historical precedent and infringe on the Second Amendment. The court ruled that any regulation must be rooted in the legal traditions of the founding era. The dissent, led by Justice Albright, warned that this approach is unworkable and dangerous in a modern society. The ruling raises the bar for justifying any gun restriction. The government must now prove a direct historical parallel. 10 categories of laws were immediately affected. The legal focus shifts from balancing interests to historical inquiry. This decision fundamentally changes how gun policy will be made and challenged. The consequences will be felt nationwide. The Supreme Court's ruling instantly impacted 5 key areas of federal gun law. The federal ban on so-called assault weapons is now unenforceable, as the court found no historical precedent for such bans. Federal waiting periods for handgun purchases were struck down. Only the time for a background check remains. Restrictions on standard capacity magazines are gone, as the court found no historical basis for limiting magazine size. The ban on interstate handgun sales between private citizens was invalidated as an unconstitutional restriction on commerce. Federal funding incentives for state red flag laws were halted, with the court framing it as federal overreach. These changes ripple through state and local laws that mirrored federal standards. The legal landscape for gun ownership has changed overnight. The Donovan ruling triggered immediate upheaval in state gun laws. Discretionary licensing and permit-to-purchase requirements in states like California and New York must shift to objective shall-issue systems. Broad gun-free zones are now severely limited. Only truly sensitive places like schools can remain off-limits. Age-based restrictions raising the minimum purchase age to 21 are invalidated. 18-year-olds regain full rights. State-level assault weapon bans must be dismantled, mirroring the federal change. Red flag laws must now include robust due process protections or face legal challenges. States must rapidly revise their laws or risk losing in court. The ruling forces a dramatic rethinking of gun regulation at every level. The Donovan ruling has thrown Washington into turmoil. The White House condemned the decision, calling it reckless and vowing to pursue new legislation. Congressional Democrats decried the ruling as an activist court's gift to the gun lobby, promising hearings and exploring court expansion. Republicans celebrated a historic victory for constitutional rights and called for further deregulation. The ruling is now a defining issue for the upcoming midterms, energizing both sides. Judicial nominations will face new scrutiny over the Donovan precedent. The Department of Justice must now review all pending firearm cases and issue new guidance. The political fallout will shape the legislative agenda for months to come. The Donovan ruling's economic impact was immediate. Firearm manufacturers' stocks soared as bans were lifted and new markets opened. Gun shops and ranges in states like California and New York are bracing for a surge in demand. Supply chains face challenges as manufacturers ramp up production. Business leaders in tech and tourism warn of negative effects, fearing public safety concerns could deter talent and visitors. Police departments must retrain officers, and legislatures face costly special sessions to revise laws. A wave of new lawsuits is expected, adding legal and financial uncertainty. The business of firearms, and the broader economy, faces a period of rapid change. Beyond the headlines and legal jargon, the Donovan ruling is not just a news story, it's a deeply personal turning point for millions of Americans. In living rooms, workplaces, and public spaces across the country, people are grappling with what this decision means for their daily lives, their families, and their sense of security. For many gun owners, today is a day of celebration and profound relief. They see it as the restoration of rights they believe were unjustly threatened, and a renewed sense of security in a world that often feels unpredictable. For them, the ruling is a validation of their beliefs, and a moment to come together as a community. Mark, a veteran in Texas, shares, "This isn't about politics, it's about protecting my family and making sure I can defend those I love. For people like me, it's a matter of responsibility and peace of mind." Gun rights advocates across the nation see the ruling as a long overdue correction. A moment when their voices were finally heard after years of feeling sidelined in the national conversation. But for others, the decision brings a wave of fear, anxiety, and grief. Many worry that the ruling will lead to more violence, more loss, and a sense that their concerns are being ignored. Maria, a mother in Chicago, says, "It feels like the highest court has told us our children's lives don't matter. We're left wondering how to keep our families safe in a country that seems to value guns over lives." Teachers and doctors, on the front lines of community safety, worry about the erosion of hard-won safety measures. They fear that the risk of violence in schools and public places will only grow, making their jobs and their lives more difficult and dangerous. A Florida teacher asks, "How do I explain to my students that the laws we thought kept us safe are gone? How do I reassure them when I'm not sure myself?" The ruling has exposed deep social fractures, turning what was once a legal debate into a personal and emotional reality for people on both sides. Conversations are heated, and communities are struggling to find common ground. America is more divided than ever on the issue of guns, with the Donovan ruling serving as a stark reminder of just how personal and polarizing this debate has become. As we stand at this historic crossroads, the path forward is uncertain. The Donovan decision has ignited a new, more intense phase of the gun debate. State lawmakers scramble to draft new laws that can survive the strict historical test. Lower courts will be flooded with lawsuits challenging every remaining gun regulation. The Department of Justice and law enforcement agencies must interpret and implement the ruling. For citizens, this is a moment to get informed and engaged. Understand how the ruling affects your state and community. Watch your elected officials closely. Their actions will shape your safety and rights. This is no longer theoretical. It's real, with consequences for everyone. The future of this debate will be decided not just in courts, but at the ballot box. For all of us at NBC News, good night.